Hey gang, Will here from the Ashland Fly Shop, and today we're doing something that we've been meaning to do for so long, and that is look at Trout Spey fly lines, or fly lines that apply to two-handed Trout Spey rods. What we're going to talk about, we feel, is that the question that we get more often than any in the store is, what does this line do for my rod, or this rod? Like, how does it react? What tip can it carry? What size fly? You know, what are the characteristics of the line on the rod? What can I expect from this line? And that's what I want to get to today. But there's a lot of preference in there, so I don't want to go real deep with that today. I really want to keep it more simple and talk about how these lines really react when cast on this rod in particular. The rod that we've chosen for this segment is the Redington Hydrogen Trout Spey in the 11.5 foot 4-weight version. This is probably our most popular Trout Spey rod ever at the store. So the running line we have is a .030 running line from Rio. It's a very simple, common, plasticized running line. I'm also going to be using a 10-foot 1.5 per second Spey Versaleader from Rio. This is about a 70 plus or minus grain tip. This is a tip that comes out of the water very easily, sinks very slowly. I use them a ton in my classes, and I feel they give me a really clear picture of how the head performs. I'm using about 2.5 feet of 8-pound Maxima off the front of that with a very small section of yarn. Again, I'm not going to be influenced by the fly in any way, or the leader or anything like that. I'm very familiar with this setup, and it'll really give me the best feel, and so I can explain the head and the characteristics of the head in, I think, the simplest and clearest way. Okay, so again, I have the Redington Hydrogen Trout Spey in the 11.5 foot 4-weight. For Skagit, the recommended grains are 325 at the top end, and for Scandi, they're in that 275 range. One thing I really want to say about this just generally is that there's a tremendous amount of preference when it comes to your line choice. I would say there's a sort of window that 90% of the people fall into. They're getting what they want out of the rod, out of the load of the rod from the line, and within that recommended window for that rod. But some people are outside of it. Some people really like a slow, deep loading head, so they just hardly have to do any work at all and really let the rod load up. And then some people like to really cast right off the top of the rod. So we're going right for the middle of the road. We're going to go right into the grain, the suggested recommended grain window for this rod. So Skagit Scout, 330 grains, sub 20 feet. I think it's 16 or 17 feet long. That's definitely a style of head that we see, whether it's from a brand like OPST or Scientific Angler. So I find these heads to be pretty short, and I feel like I have to adjust accordingly. I feel like I'm kind of leaving a little bit of my casting stroke behind a little bit. I'm kind of leaving a little bit of it there on the floor. When I'm casting these heads, a lot of times I wish that I could bring a little bit more into it. This head has a nice load on this rod. It's not too deep. It's kind of right in the middle. It's kind of where I like to feel it. I can definitely feel it pulling at the rod and flexing the rod, but it's not way down deep, and it's not too squirrely. It casts really nice, casts kind of right off the top of the rod. It's really demanding a very compact stroke. It's demanding a short compact stroke because of the length of it at sub 20 feet. Short head like this, a lot of times I find myself leaving a couple of feet of overhang, a couple of feet of the head hanging out of the top of the rod, so that I can kind of sweep a little bit stronger into the head or into my D-loop. I think a line like this would really excel with a big fly. This is like a, deliver the groceries kind of a fly line, I think. I think that you could cast the biggest flies that you would put on a rod like this, a Trout Spey rod, like your bigger streamers would really want a line like this. Yeah, these sub 20-foot heads are just a little bit hard to get, you know, just that real precise energy to go through it to make a nice tight loop. But I will tell you that a beginner with a head like this, I think is a pretty good choice. As long as you can keep your stroke nice and slow, I think that it's gonna be a nice head for you. So Airflow Skagit Scout feels like it really wants a pretty decent tip on it to perform the best. I tend to want to hang the head out a little bit more for more versatile situations, but if you're casting big streamers, I think this would be a really good choice. All right, we have the Rio Scandi body on the rod now, and boy, if you follow us, you know how we feel about this line. It's a real favorite of ours for these Trout Spey lines, and it's a bit of a sleeper. So this is a Scandi style head that's really compact. It's basically 23 feet long. It gets a little bit longer as the grains go up, and you often find it in their kit form, their Scandi short Versatip, but you can buy the head by itself, and I just feel like, and a lot of us at the Ashland Fly Shop feel that it's probably the most versatile head that you can put on your Trout Spey rod. So we're going to put it through its paces here. Unique thing about this line is we strongly suggest that you get it in a Skagit size, in a Skagit grain weight. So if your rod, if the window is 325 or the suggested size 325, get the 325 Scandi body head. It's a great load. It won't overload the rod, and it'll feel really good on there. To use this head in true Scandi form, you would want like a 10-foot floating tip on the front of it, and then you'd really need to drop down in size, in weight. So there's so much good I can say about this line. I believe it's the most versatile. It will hit the wall with big flies, there's no doubt about it. But it has such a great load on the rod. The taper, you know, the quick taper down to a smaller front end is really, really smooth and just really carries a loop beautifully. You can fish light versaleaders like the 1.5 per second one I have on here, and you can also put a bigger versaleader on it too. You know, we fish them up to 5 inches per second on here, and it just handles them really nicely. So really a nice Skagit load, but not too deep, just a little bit of pull back there. Kind of gives me the ability to adjust if I need to. I can hit it hard and it still holds a loop. I can cast it really smoothly and it still holds a nice loop. Great line for distance. But this head really, really holds a loop beautifully when you cast it. It just like a Scandi. It really holds that loop very nicely. And so you're getting a lot of the great aspects of a Scandi head, but in more of a Skagit style feel. And it's just really an exceptional head and feels great on this rod. So the Rio Scandi body, really smooth casting, Scandi style taper, short aggressive Scandi taper, very versatile head. Really a wonderful line to cast on a Trout Spey rod, just like hand in glove. Very, very nice head to cast on there, and really a joy to cast on this rod. All right, we got the OPST Commando. We've got a 275 grain head here, and that's matched with the 1.5 per second Versaleader and about 70 grains of Spey Versaleader. So that brings the total head grain weight up to about 325, which is about where we want to be for this. For me, that is really, really noticeable. I think that a sink tip, once you get into different sink tips, longer sink tips, maybe a 12-foot sink tip, in that straight 100 grain category, I think it's really going to even this head out, and it's going to be a real smooth casting, a little bit smoother casting experience. Again, I also think this head just by itself is going to really excel with large flies, kind of like the Scout. It's really going to excel with larger flies. It's going to make it a little more stable, I think. A really nice head to go back and forth between single-handing, single-hand spay, and even maybe a little bit of overcasting. It does that very well. Again, I can see these really short heads being pretty cool for beginners, especially if you can really slow down. You know, just go really slow and just kind of come around really easily. I think these heads will respond really, really well to that. And that's something that is actually quite hard to relearn, is to go really slow. So I think that if you can go really slow, this is a good choice, a good option. Just kind of slowly come around and let it go. And it responds well to that. Longer lines won't like that quite as much, longer heads. Grain windows on these heads, I feel, is a pretty personal choice with the OPST. I seem to like more grains than is recommended. I like, you know, this is 275. I know we've put 250 on this rod, and I think you could get away with even a little bit more on there. All right, so we got the Rio Scandi here. This is a modern Scandi. It's sub 30 feet, probably around 29 feet. It's 270 grains, and feels great. Feels really nice on this rod. Just basically doing single spay type stuff, but getting a really nice load on the rod. Loops carrying out nice. Just feels really, really good on here. I think, you know, a standard Scandi on a rod like this is a pretty versatile tool. I think that if you're fishing smaller, soft hackles, swinging things like that, long leaders. Again, we have the 1.5 per second 10-foot verse leader on here. We got probably about 4 feet of tippet coming off, so we're at about 15 feet probably. But easy to find the anchor with this. Yeah, really a nice feel. Yeah, if you're fishing big water with dries, this would be a really fun head to use as well. I don't know about big dries like salmon flies. We really like the Scandi body a lot for that because it's got a little more punch in it. But if you're casting like, you know, size 10 stimulators or hoppers or things like that, and you had a big river to work with, this line would be an absolute blast to fish that way as well. Yeah, Rio Scandi just feels great. 270 grains, perfect load, super smooth cast, nice loops. Yeah, it feels great on this rod, absolutely. Last word on Scandis, you know, they really are a speed line. You know, they're definitely more of a speed than a rod load, the kind of feedback that you're getting from the rod. A lot of timing involved in really casting them correctly, so I think that's just a good thing to know when you're getting into Scandi casting. We do a lot of Skagit casting. Skagit casting's great, it's easy, it's versatile. Scandi casting, I think, you know, you're going a couple rungs up the ladder there when you're really kind of dialing in your Scandi casting. Well, that's what we got for you folks. We tried out some great lines today. The Scandi body, a Skagit from Airflow, OPST, a couple Scandi lines, some really great lines, a really short list of some of the top lines that we recommend for Trout Spey fly rods. And we really hope that you got a sense of when you're choosing a line like that, how it's going to perform on the rod, what it's going to do, maybe maybe the best situation that it's chosen for, whether it's a heavy tip and big fly type of line, more versatile type of line, or small fly light line type of line like this Scandi head here. And that's, I think, what we really find when people are trying to choose a line for their home water, what they're trying to do. So hopefully that helps. We will be doing kind of deeper dives into these lines as time goes on, but hopefully that gives you a good sense of where to begin lining up your Trout Spey rod. Thanks a lot for watching.